you're not typically going to look back and say, I shouldn't have pursued something that I was passionate about or that I knew there was such a strong need for, because either way, you're going to learn a lot. So just having that ability to take that risk and sort of fulfill this burning desire to do more, I think it was certainly worth it.
Hello, I'm Ines Darrat, FY26 President of the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. Please take a moment to subscribe to Diverse on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. I'm excited to welcome Melanie Lang to the podcast today. Melanie is the founder and CEO of FormAlloy, as well as one of the keynote speakers at our upcoming We25 conference in New Orleans. Melanie, I'm looking forward to talking to you about breaking rules and taking risks, and also giving our listeners a sneak peek of your We25 keynote. Welcome to Diverse.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really look forward to speaking with you and even more excited to be in New Orleans in a couple months.
Thanks so much for joining us. To start off, could you introduce yourself and walk us through your story? From getting your engineering degrees to working for two big aerospace and defense companies to switching gears and founding your own company.
Sure. So my journey to where I'm at right now as a founder and entrepreneur started at a pretty young age with a fascination with space. And I always knew I wanted to be involved somehow in space and aerospace. And so I went on to pursue a degree in aerospace engineering at the University of Illinois, and really just found such a fascination again with space and the technology. And it just felt like an area where there was so much left to be explored and defined, and certainly wasn't boring. So I just thought it was so exciting, and just this whole realm of exploration and engineering that there was so much left to be defined in. And I started my career at Boeing and then Lockheed Martin. And I took a few months off, but then I went back to school while working full time to get a master's degree. I got that degree in system architecture and engineering from University of Southern California. I thought it would help my career a little bit more as a technologist to get a degree that was slightly broader than the very focus that I had in aerospace engineering. That was challenging to be working full time and going to school part time, but it also taught me a lot of lessons that I still use today, just about things like continuing to go and sometimes having more on your plate than you think you can get done, but always just keep on going and putting one foot in front of the other. And that also helped me as a founder, because it was very challenging to leave a stable career in the aerospace and defense industry and go start this whole new adventure. So back in 2016, I saw a huge need for what is metal additive manufacturing in the industry. And I didn't know exactly how it would turn out or what I would be doing, but I knew that what I was seeing in aerospace and defense was that a lot of parts were needed to make all these systems work, whether you're trying to go to space or you're trying to equip your defense forces. They always need parts. It was just one area I thought could use a lot of innovation. And I decided to pursue that full time after sort of getting involved in it more as a hobbyist. So I went from thinking that, 3D printing and additive manufacturing was just kind of a cool thing, and I started looking into it, to really realizing that this could change the way things were made, and decided to take a leap of faith back in 2016. So coming up on 10 years now. The rest is history. It's been quite a ride.
That's awesome. And, just taking that leap of faith and really believing in yourself. I'm sure it was really hard, but at the same time, I'm hoping you found it very rewarding, because the risk taking in starting your own business
it's scary.
Yes, the risk taking is very scary, especially after working for firms that were very stable at the time you were working for them. So on that note, on risk taking, what did you learn about risk taking during the time period when you first started out your business?
Yeah, there was a lot of risk involved. Like you said, I had a stable career. I had a job that I loved, a clear career path, and sort of a not an easy path, but just a very, well-defined path to success and path to growth from a career perspective. But I couldn't shake this belief and knowledge that I had that things could be done better in terms of getting the right parts to the right place at the right time. I just had to kind of take the leap of faith. Now, there were some things that I did to help reduce risk in the early days. So while I was pursuing FormAlloy full time, I did some consulting part time just to make sure that I had some, funds coming in to, pay for my home and that kind of thing. I understood the risks involved and how scary it was. And I did try to mitigate that some by having a little bit of a lifeline through some consulting work that I did early on. Initially it's this big, bold move, taking this leap of faith. I'm going to go start this business. I'm going to go do this thing. But really overall, I think it's more of a mindset. And that's kind of what I learned early on, is that as an entrepreneur, you're taking small risks every day to reach your goal. You kind of have to keep doing that to grow and push yourself. And it does get a little bit more comfortable to take that over time, although it's a little bit different now than what it was, early on. So initially taking that big, bold risk and that leap of faith, but then knowing that you're taking little risks every day and you're just going to keep on going, and you're going to keep on putting one foot in front of the other, and you're going to keep on working towards the belief and the passion that you have. And the other thing I like to think of is that although it is a big risk and it can be scary, I think it's a bigger risk to not do something that you're passionate about and that will be a success, because then in the future, you're going to think, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. You're not typically going to look back and say, I shouldn't have pursued something that I was passionate about or that I knew there was such a strong need for, because either way, you're going to certainly learn a lot. So just having that ability to take that risk and sort of fulfill this burning desire to do more than what I was doing and do something different, I think it was certainly worth it.
Thank you for sharing about your risks and how you took them. And then really love the lessons learned about it's a mindset. And so you become much more comfortable with taking those risks as time goes on. So one of the big things about taking risks is the potential for failure. And failure is actually a huge part of the theme for this year, which is Embrace Your Story. So Embrace Your Story is about celebrating our big and small wins, but it's also realizing that you could have failures, or as I like to call them, pivots. They're not really failures. They're just a new direction, right? Things happen for a reason. They give you a new direction, and you might end up having amazing success, or you might end up just taking on a path that you would never have done so. So can you share a time where you failed and what you learned from it?
Absolutely. And there's certainly plenty of failures to share about. I think the biggest one, which was early on, was that I was saying yes to too many things. So if a customer had a budget and they wanted to find a way to work with us, I was saying yes to everything, even if it wasn't really in my core strength or really the core and the focus of the business that I was starting. That led to a couple of failures where we committed to delivery dates with customers and then missed those dates. And it's because we were saying yes to too many things and we weren't staying focused enough. After about 2 of those failures where we disappointed a customer and didn't deliver what we were supposed to on time, I really had to think and sort of refocus and just say, obviously you need to have revenue coming into a business, but at the same time, you can't be everything to everybody. I think you have to stay focused on your strengths and the overall problem you're trying to solve with the business. And even if someone has some funding somewhere over here that's not really aligned, it takes discipline to kind of say no to that. But I think sometimes you have to, or you end up, like I said, you end up trying to be too many things to too many people. And I think that is a little bit inherent in how we think as women. We're kind of caretakers and we're trying to say yes to everything and help everybody solve all their problems. And I've just had to learn a lot of discipline, and, saying no can be a lot harder than saying yes, but sometimes it's the right thing to do. That was something, luckily, I learned fairly early on. It's really helped get us to where we are today by staying focused and doing what we're best at and doing what we're strongest at.
Really, thank you for sharing that, because your strengths are what drive you, right? And so, like, honing in on your strengths and having them carry you through. And you don't necessarily have to think about that there's something missing out there, because that's what potentially then leads to the failures. And that's a great lesson to learn from having, failed. So, with that, and taking the lessons from the failures and your risk taking, you really hone in on your strengths and you evaluate. So, is there anything else you would like to add on what does taking a risk look like for you now in your career compared to when you first started your business?
Yeah, I think, early on, the risks can be a lot more personal because you have taken this big leap of faith. Your financial situation and your emotional well-being and your personal life are all very entwined in this big change that you have when you sort of embark on the entrepreneurial journey. So now they're not any easier, but they're just different. So now the focus is a little bit more on, what risks we'll take and when, and more strategic than personal. So looking at things like market timing, when to release certain products, technology risks, like what type of technology we should invest in. So it's definitely a lot more strategic, and I prefer it that way because it's very, business focused now and doing what's best for our employees and our customers and our technology. It's become less personal in a good way than it was in the early days.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then that comes through about being a founder and like finding your place as leading your company and then carrying it through for your whole team. So one of the other things you're going to be speaking with us about is rules and breaking rules, right? Sometimes the hardest rules to break are the unspoken ones, like who gets to lead or how an engineer should look or dress or behave. I'll never forget early on in my career, I worked for a consulting firm, right? And so as part of the consulting firm, I went to go visit a client, and seeing the look of surprise on my contact's face when they saw me sitting in the lobby waiting for them. And it's because they were probably expecting to see someone who looked very different than me. So there's always like a certain expectation how engineers should look or dress or behave. So what rule do you think more engineers, especially women, should question or push back on?
Yeah, I mean, I think your example is great. And I think this happens all the time, especially to women. In general, the notion that leaders have a certain look or they have to be a certain way, they have to be loud or aggressive or masculine. And I think that is certainly completely wrong. And, all of us in this organization at SWE is especially changing that mindset. So I think the biggest rule to push back on is that in general, women need to shrink themselves or change themselves to fit into a technical or leadership space. And we don't need to. We need to take up the space that we want to take up. We need to speak and dress the way that is true to ourselves. And I think that's the most important thing. If you're being authentic to yourself and that makes other people uncomfortable, that's not a you problem. That's a they problem. I think that's something I've had to learn as an entrepreneur because I did used to do a lot more to fit into what I thought was that technical and leadership role in large organizations. And I was just essentially shrinking myself. And so, it's taken the better part of these 10 years to really feel like I can be my true self and I can dress and I can speak the way that is authentic to me. And it's been very freeing and definitely makes life and your career much more enjoyable when you get to that point.
Thank you so much. And that's so on with this year's theme as well, because Embrace Your Story is also embracing about who you are and what you're about. And so, if you want to wear that pink suit jacket, wear that pink suit jacket. If you want to wear a cream suit jacket, wear a cream suit jacket, right? However you want to dress, go dress and bring your authentic self to work and bring your authentic self to being an engineer, because that's how we find like the greatest, latest things is by not pigeonholing ourselves or, Melanie, as you put it, shrinking ourselves to be what other people expect us to be, but being our true selves so we can be the best that we can be.
Absolutely. So I wanted to share one story because you brought up the pink thing, which I love so much because anyone that has seen me in person knows that I love pink and I do wear a lot of pink. So I wanted to share this story. A few years ago, I was asked to give a keynote presentation at a large technical conference primarily very highly degreed women there, highly technical conference. And I was so excited to give the keynote. And I have this suit jacket that's one of my favorites, and it's hot pink, and it has these feathered sleeves on the cuffs. And I always would just take those off. They had buttons on it, so I would take off the feathers. And I decided that year, as the keynote, I can wear the feathers. It would be fun. I got so many comments from the women. It was still male dominated, more men than women at this conference, but so many people, mentioned things like they loved that I wore that, and it made them feel more comfortable wearing more colors to conferences. Since then, at many of the major conferences in the manufacturing, advanced manufacturing and additive manufacturing space, many of the women will wear hot pink or other bright colors on the Wednesday of the conference, and then we all get together and take a picture. And I didn't realize that really was started with my keynote presentation from 3 or 4 years ago, where I wore the hot pink jacket with the feathers. And now it's sort of let all the women that wanted to wear bright colors or pink that felt uncomfortable, now they're doing it. And I was so honored when I was participating in that and someone said, well, you're the one that kind of started this and inspired this whole thing. So it just goes to show you that when you are your authentic self and you do things that make you happy, it can also inspire other people and help them break out of their own shell.
I 100% agree with that assessment. And thank you for setting that trend. I have to see what this pink jacket looks like with the feathers.
Hey, there's a good chance that we'll make an appearance in New Orleans.
Oh, awesome. Looking forward to seeing it. Again, that kind of just breaking the rules and being your authentic self and leading and being a risk taker, getting up there in front of especially a conference. And, at SWE, I think we are very much our authentic self, and you'll see people in a wide variety of different colors. I love wearing like my different suit jacket colors and wearing a lot of color when I go to SWE conferences. And I've started myself to start taking that to my other conferences and just being more my authentic self than wearing just the standard neutral color suits. So thank you for setting that trend within your organization. So thank you again, Melanie, for joining us today. This has been very thoughtful. Like I said, I'm looking very forward to seeing this pink suit jacket with the feathers and listening to you talk to us more about breaking rules and taking risks and more about your life story and with founding your company. And now I'm even more excited to see this keynote at We25.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be selected to be speaking at the conference, and I can't wait to meet you in person again and see all the attendees.
Looking forward to it. For anyone listening who wants to see Melanie's keynote at We25 in New Orleans, we would love to see you there. We25 is the world's largest conference for women in engineering and technology. We have a huge career fair where you can meet and interview with your next employer, along with networking opportunities and hundreds of sessions and speakers. I hope you join us October 23rd to the 25th in the Big Easy, New Orleans. And you can visit we25.swe.org to get all the details and register. I'm Darrat, your FY26 SWE president, and from all of us at SWE, thanks for listening.